You know, getting older brings so many wonderful things. Grandchildren, wisdom, maybe a bit more time for ourselves, but it also brings changes to our bodies, some of which can be a little inconvenient. Shall we say things we never used to think about suddenly become part of daily life? Like those unexpected trips to the bathroom, maybe more often than you'd like, or that feeling of urgency that seems to come out of nowhere. It can really impact your comfort, your sleep, even your confidence when you're out and about. It's a reality many of us face, but it doesn't have to control your life. What if I told you that some of the things you're eating or drinking could be playing a big role in this? It's true. There's a kind of secret link between what's on your plate and how happy your bladder and urinary system are, especially as we get a little older. In this video, we're going to look at 5 specific foods and drinks that urologists often warn people about after 60 because they can really stir things up down there. We'll talk about why they might be causing you trouble and what you can do instead. Stick with me, because watching to the end might just reveal something that surprises you. Let's dive right in, starting with something many of us rely on to get our day going, or perhaps enjoy multiple times throughout the day. I'm talking about coffee, and specifically, the caffeine in it. Now, I know, for many of you, that first cup of coffee is sacred. It's a ritual, a wake-up call, a moment of peace. And I'm not saying you have to give it up entirely, but it's the number one thing urologists point to when people over 60 start complaining about frequent urination, urgency, or even nighttime trips to the bathroom. Why? Because caffeine is a diuretic. That means it encourages your kidneys to produce more urine. Think of your bladder like a balloon. When you're younger, that balloon is pretty elastic and forgiving. It can stretch comfortably and signal you when it's reasonably full. But as we age, the bladder muscle can lose some of its elasticity. It might not be able to hold as much, or the signals it sends might become a bit more erratic or urgent. Now, add caffeine into the mix. Your kidneys are producing more urine faster, sending it down to a bladder that's already perhaps less accommodating than it used to be. It's like pouring water quickly into a smaller, stiffer balloon. It fills up faster, feels fuller sooner, and the urge to empty it becomes more immediate and intense. Beyond being a diuretic, caffeine is also what's called a bladder irritant. This means it can directly irritate the lining of the bladder wall. Imagine a sensitive stomach reacting to certain foods. The bladder lining can react similarly to caffeine. This irritation can increase bladder activity, leading to those sudden, strong urges to go, sometimes even when the bladder isn't very full. This is often why people experience urgency or even leaks when they consume caffeine. It's not just about volume. It's about how happy and calm the bladder lining is. For younger bladders, this irritation might be minimal or easily tolerated. But for bladders that are perhaps already a bit more sensitive or less efficient with age, that irritation can be the tipping point that makes things uncomfortable and unpredictable. Think about your day. Do you start with a large coffee? Do you have another mid-morning? Maybe one after lunch? Or even a cup of tea or a soda in the afternoon? Many teas and sodas also contain caffeine. Each dose is potentially adding to the diuretic and irritating effect. Someone who drinks several cups throughout the day is constantly sending their bladder these signals to produce more urine and simultaneously irritating the bladder lining. This can lead to a cycle of feeling like you constantly need to be near a bathroom. It can disrupt sleep if you're getting up multiple times a night, often linked to that last caffeinated beverage consumed too close to bedtime, or the cumulative effect of caffeine throughout the day. The good news is that you don't necessarily have to go cold turkey. Often, simply reducing your intake can make a significant difference. Maybe swap one of your regular coffees for a decaf version, or try having a smaller size. Hydration is still important, of course, but you can get that from water, which doesn't have the same diuretic and irritating effects. Pay attention to when you consume caffeine, if nighttime trips are the main problem. Cutting out caffeine after a certain time in the afternoon can be incredibly helpful. Slowly decreasing your intake over a week or two can also help your body adjust without withdrawal symptoms like headaches. Some people find that even switching from coffee to green tea, which has less caffeine and different antioxidants, is enough to reduce symptoms. Experiment a little and see what works for you. It's about finding a balance where you can still enjoy a little of what you like without your bladder constantly reminding you it's unhappy. Making this one change, reducing your caffeine intake, especially from coffee, is often the first and most effective step urologists recommend to improve bladder symptoms in people over 60. It's a simple change, but it can have a profound impact on your daily comfort and freedom. Now that we've talked about coffee and caffeine, let's move on to something else that can really spice things up, in more ways than one. So, we've explored how that morning coffee might be causing more bathroom breaks than you'd like. Now, let's shift our focus to something that adds flavor and heat to our meals: spicy foods. Things like chili peppers, hot sauces, and dishes with a lot of strong spices. While they might be delicious and great for metabolism for some, they can be quite irritating to the bladder lining, especially as we get older. Just like caffeine, spicy foods contain compounds that can essentially annoy the delicate tissues of the bladder. Think about how spicy food can sometimes irritate your mouth or throat. It can have a similar effect further down the digestive and urinary tracts. When you eat spicy food, these compounds are absorbed into your bloodstream and eventually make their way to your kidneys, which filter them out into your urine. This spicy urine then comes into contact with the bladder wall. If your bladder is already a bit sensitive, this can lead to increased urgency, frequency, and that uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, sensation when the bladder fills or empties. Imagine your bladder lining is like sensitive skin. Putting something irritating on sensitive skin can cause redness, itching, and discomfort. Similarly, urine containing irritating substances from spicy food can cause the bladder lining to become inflamed or hypersensitive. This heightened sensitivity makes the bladder muscle contract more readily, giving you that sudden, strong urge to go, even if the bladder isn't very full. For people dealing with conditions like an overactive bladder, spicy foods are almost always on the list of things to avoid because they are such common triggers for flare-ups. But even without a diagnosed condition, the aging bladder simply might not tolerate the same level of irritation it once did. That delicious curry or those fiery wings that never bothered you in your 30s might suddenly become problematic in your 60s and beyond. It's not just chili heat, either. Some people find that very acidic foods, like strong tomato sauces or citrus fruits, though we'll touch on those briefly later, combined with spices, can compound the issue. It's the overall irritating quality of the urine that affects the bladder. For many, the effect isn't immediate. You might eat spicy food in the evening and then find yourself dealing with increased urgency and frequency overnight or the next morning. This makes it tricky to pinpoint, because you might not connect last night's dinner with this morning's bladder woes. Keeping a food diary for a week or two can be incredibly helpful if you suspect spicy foods are affecting you. Note down what you eat and drink and when you experience bladder symptoms. You might start to see a pattern. So, what can you do? The most straightforward approach is to reduce how much spice you consume. If you love spicy food, try milder versions. Use fewer chili flakes, less hot sauce, instead of relying on heat for flavor. Explore other herbs and spices that are less irritating, like basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary, or even ginger and turmeric in moderate amounts. When dining out, ask about the spice level of dishes and don't be afraid to request that the kitchen tones it down. At home, you have complete control. Start by reducing the amount of spicy ingredients you use, or omit them entirely from certain meals for a week or two and see if your symptoms improve. If they do, you've likely found a culprit. You can then slowly reintroduce a little spice to find your personal tolerance level. For some, even a tiny bit of spice is too much, while others can tolerate a moderate amount. It's very individual. But if you're struggling with bladder urgency and frequency. Cutting back on spicy foods is definitely one of the key dietary changes recommended by urologists to see if it brings relief. It's about making your bladder a happier, calmer place. It's amazing how much impact what we eat has on parts of our body we might not usually think about. Moving on, let's talk about something else that many people enjoy, especially on a hot day or with a meal: carbonated beverages. This includes fizzy drinks like soda, sparkling water, and even some alcoholic drinks like champagne or fizzy wine. While they seem harmless, the carbonation itself can be a problem for sensitive bladders. The bubbles in these drinks are caused by dissolved carbon dioxide gas. When you drink them, this gas is released in your digestive system and absorbed to some extent, and some of it can end up circulating and potentially affecting the bladder. The carbonation can stretch the bladder wall slightly or trigger the nerves in the bladder lining, leading to increased feelings of urgency or the need to go more often. It's similar to the irritation caused by caffeine or spicy foods, but it's the physical effect of the bubbles and the acidity that can be the issue here. Think about it this way: your bladder has stretch receptors that tell your brain how full it is. Carbonation can sometimes trick these receptors or make the bladder muscle react more strongly. It can cause the bladder to become hyperactive, meaning it contracts more often and with less warning than it should. So, you might take a few sips of a fizzy drink, and suddenly you feel that urgent need to find a bathroom, even if you just went a little while ago. It's not necessarily adding a lot of volume to your bladder quickly, like drinking plain water might, but it's irritating it and making it behave erratically. Diet sodas, in particular, are often a double whammy because they contain both carbonation and artificial sweeteners, which are another category of food irritants we should consider. Regular sodas are also problematic because of their high sugar content and often caffeine and artificial colorings, all of which can potentially irritate the bladder. Even sparkling water, which seems like a healthy alternative to soda, can cause issues for some people because of the carbonation. While it's better than sugary or caffeinated sodas, if you're experiencing bladder sensitivity, you might find that plain, still water is much gentler on your system. People who switch from drinking several cans of soda or glasses of sparkling water a day to drinking mostly still water often report a significant improvement in their bladder symptoms, including less urgency and fewer trips to the bathroom. It's one of those things that seems minor, just bubbles, but for a sensitive bladder, it can be a major source of irritation. If you're used to drinking fizzy drinks regularly, try switching to still water or unsweetened, uncaffeinated teas. Herbal teas like chamomile or peppermint can be very soothing. If you miss the flavor, you can infuse still water with slices of cucumber. Lemon, though citrus, can be irritating for some. Test this carefully. Lime or berries. This gives you flavor without the irritating carbonation, sugar, caffeine, or artificial ingredients. It's about choosing beverages that hydrate your body without aggravating your bladder. Making a conscious effort to swap out those carbonated drinks for still alternatives is another simple, actionable step that many people over 60 find helps significantly with bladder comfort and control. It reduces one more source of potential irritation, allowing your bladder to function more calmly. Now that we've looked at some common beverages and spicy foods, let's think about our meals, specifically those that are high in sodium or are heavily processed. Many convenience foods, ready meals, snacks like crisps or pretzels, cured meats, and restaurant meals are packed with salt and various additives. While sodium is essential for bodily functions, consuming too much, especially as we age, can put a strain on our kidneys. The kidneys filter waste and excess fluid from our blood to produce urine. When there's too much sodium in the system, the kidneys have to work harder to get rid of it. High sodium intake can lead to increased thirst and greater fluid intake, naturally resulting in more urine production. More urine production means more trips to the bathroom. Beyond the direct effect on urine volume, high sodium and processed foods often contain artificial flavorings, preservatives, and colorings. These chemical additives, similar to caffeine and spicy compounds, can sometimes act as bladder irritants. They are filtered by the kidneys and concentrated in the urine, and this concentrated mix of chemicals can irritate the bladder lining, leading to increased urgency and frequency. Think about the ingredients list on many processed snacks or ready meals. It's often long and full of things you don't recognize. Many of these additives haven't been thoroughly studied for their effects on the aging bladder, but anecdotal evidence and clinical observations suggest they can be problematic for many people. It's not just the salt, it's the whole package of artificial stuff that comes with it. Moreover, consuming a diet high in processed foods and sodium often means you're consuming fewer whole, nutrient-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. These foods are important for overall health, including the health of your urinary tract. For example, fiber found in whole foods helps with regular bowel movements. And believe it or not, constipation can put pressure on the bladder and worsen urinary symptoms. So, a diet high in processed foods can negatively impact bladder function in multiple ways, through high sodium, irritating additives, and a lack of beneficial nutrients and fiber. The solution here is to focus on eating more whole, unprocessed foods. Cook meals from scratch using fresh ingredients whenever possible. Read food labels and choose options that are lower in sodium and have fewer artificial ingredients. This doesn't mean your food has to be bland. You can use herbs, spices, the non-irritating ones we discussed, garlic, onion, vinegar, and lemon juice to add flavor without relying on salt or artificial additives. Choose fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables over canned ones, or rinse canned ones thoroughly to remove excess sodium. Opt for lean proteins and whole grains. This shift in diet not only benefits your bladder, but also your overall health, your heart, your digestion, your energy levels. It's about nourishing your body with real food that supports all its systems, including the urinary one. Reducing high sodium. Processed foods is a powerful step towards reducing bladder irritation and the strain on your kidneys, leading to potentially fewer urgent trips to the bathroom. Finally, let's talk about artificial sweeteners. These are found in many diet or sugar-free products, including sodas, juices, yogurts, sweets, and even some medications. Common artificial sweeteners include aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose. While they are marketed as healthier alternatives to sugar, particularly for managing weight or blood sugar, they are known bladder irritants for a significant number of people, especially in the over 60 age group, like the compounds in spicy food or the additives in processed food. Artificial sweeteners are absorbed and processed by the body, and their byproducts are excreted in urine. When these byproducts come into contact with the bladder lining, they can cause irritation and inflammation, triggering increased urgency and frequency. The mechanism isn't fully understood, but it's believed that these chemicals can either directly irritate the nerve endings in the bladder wall or disrupt the normal signaling between the bladder and the brain. For a bladder that's already experiencing some age-related changes, this extra irritation can push it into becoming overactive. Many people who consume diet drinks or use artificial sweeteners regularly find that their bladder symptoms improve significantly when they eliminate these from their diet. It can be surprising because we often think of sugar-free as being automatically better for our health. But in the case of bladder health, artificial sweeteners can be worse than regular sugar for some individuals. The challenge is that artificial sweeteners are hidden in so many products. You might not realize you're consuming them in your sugar-free yogurt, your diet iced tea, or even certain chewing gums or cough drops. Reading labels is key. Look for ingredients like aspartame, sucralose splenda, saccharin, acesulfame potassium, ACE-K, and neotame. The best way to avoid them is to stick to whole, unprocessed foods and to sweeten drinks or food yourself using natural, non-irritating options if needed, though often simply reducing the need for intense sweetness is the healthiest approach. Plain water, unsweetened herbal teas, or water infused with fruit are excellent beverage choices if you need a touch of sweetness. Consider small amounts of natural sweeteners like honey or maple syrup, but be mindful of sugar intake too. However, for bladder health specifically, eliminating artificial sweeteners is often a crucial step if you're experiencing symptoms. Many people notice a difference within days or a couple of weeks of cutting them out completely. It's about reducing the chemical load that your kidneys have to filter and that your bladder has to hold and expel. Making the choice to avoid artificial sweeteners removes another potential source of irritation, helping your bladder function more smoothly and predictably. So, we've talked about coffee and other sources of caffeine, the heat from spicy foods, the bubbles in carbonated drinks, the hidden salt and additives in processed foods, and the surprising impact of artificial sweeteners. These 5 things: caffeine, spicy foods, carbonated drinks, high-sodium processed foods, and artificial sweeteners are among the top dietary culprits that urologists identify as contributing to bladder irritation and urinary symptoms in people over 60. It might seem like a lot to consider, but remember, it's not about perfection overnight. It's about awareness and making small, manageable changes. Perhaps start with the one that seems most likely to be affecting you, or the one that seems easiest to tackle. Maybe swap your morning coffee for decaf for a week and see what happens. Or try going a week without any spicy food. Gradually reduce your intake of processed snacks or switch from soda to still water. Eliminating artificial sweeteners often requires a careful look at labels, but the potential payoff in bladder comfort can be huge. Listen to your body. Pay attention to how you feel after consuming certain foods or drinks. Your body is constantly sending you signals, and sometimes, bladder symptoms are its way of telling you that something you're consuming isn't agreeing with it. Remember, these suggestions are based on common irritants, but everyone is different. What bothers one person's bladder might not bother yours. That's why experimenting and paying attention is so important. These dietary adjustments, combined with other healthy habits like staying adequately hydrated with still water, maintaining a healthy weight, and doing pelvic floor exercises if recommended by a healthcare professional, can make a world of difference in improving bladder control and reducing those bothersome symptoms. You don't have to accept frequent urgency and nighttime trips as just an inevitable part of aging. You have power over many factors that influence your health and comfort. And diet is a big one. Taking steps to reduce these bladder irritants can lead to fewer urgent trips, better sleep, and more confidence to go about your day without constantly worrying about finding a bathroom. It gives you back a sense of control and freedom. It's about empowering yourself with information and making choices that support your body as it changes. You deserve to live comfortably and enjoy your life to the fullest at every age. I hope this information has been helpful and maybe even shed some light on why you might be experiencing certain symptoms. If you've tried reducing any of these foods or drinks, or if you have other foods you found helpful or irritating, please share your experiences in the comments below. Your insights could help someone else, and if you found this video valuable, please give it a like. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more tips and information on living your best life as you age. Thank you for watching. And remember, small changes can truly make a big difference to your health and happiness. Live your best life at every age.